Hey everybody, and welcome to my in5 series where I cover a topic in about 5 minutes. El Deuterino writes in and asks how I learned about signal paths in response to my what the heck is connected to that headphone jack, which was basically just talking about as a video kind of how everything's connected in my studio. And I will say, probably the most important thing if you're trying to learn about signal paths, how to route things, how to connect things, is if you're gonna like feel free to ask for advice. There's plenty of forums out there with lots of helpful people. But I will say, make sure you know what your outcome is, because just saying like, here's a list of gear, how do I hook this up? Nobody's gonna be able to tell you, because we don't know how you want to do effects, what you want to do with it, how you want to record things, how you want to do gating or a million other things. And if you don't know, you don't know. So it makes it hard to ask questions. I totally get that. But for me, honestly, I just really started very simple. Just one device. How do I hook it up to a computer? Then, start getting some effects like, oh, how do I get those effects added in so I can affect things on the device that I got, which happened to be a Triton Studio. That was my Core Triton Studio was my first synthesizer that I ever got, and kind of just started slowly growing from there for having devices. And I'll tell you one thing is, the more connections you have or the more joints you have between cables, the more likely you are to introduce signal noise, radio noise, bad connections, all kinds of problems. So for the longest time, I was very against having a mixer, which would probably drove myself insane to some extent. But traditionally, what I would do is use a USB audio device. Actually, I was using a Motu 828 for quite a while, until Firewire went out of style. That was my device of choice, and I would use Ableton Live as my mixer, basically. At the time, I was very digitally focused, keeping everything for signals clear, pristine, and all that. So didn't have a mixer for probably 15, 20 years out of my music making, shouldn't say career, but hobby, as it were. And just kind of learned from there. And instead of going for a mixer, what I ended up falling onto was using a patch bay. Basically, it's just a patch bay is a simple way to allow you to spend more money on buying cables. You have to have twice as many cables or three times as many cables. But what it does is allows you to quick connect one device's input to another device's output, so that you can then kind of reroute audio through your studio without having to disconnect things from the back and do all that. So if you're just looking for how do I flexibly reconnect things, I would certainly say look into a patch bay. If you're looking at like, how do I have a consistent way to run EQ or faders so you can adjust volume, have something that's got some standard effects, definitely consider looking into a mixer. There are plenty of pretty inexpensive mixers out there. The important thing I would say though is if you're looking for a mixer or even a patch bay, it's probably worth, if you think you're going to actually stick with this as a hobby, getting as many inputs and outputs as you think you may max out to. I think that there's plenty of perfectly fine two-channel mono mixers out there, but I think for what most people are trying to do, especially if you're trying to get like 3 or 4 synthesizers, you're going to find that that's just not going to be enough, and you're having to disconnect and reconnect things all the time, even if you have a patch bay in there. I would also say, if you're looking to just get like, whether it's guitar pedals or other effects, it is handy having a patch bay where you can just kind of reroute stuff. And I mean, these days, since like Ableton and a lot of other DAWs have become far more advanced and popular and things, it's pretty easy to have a mixed digital and like analog setup. So, look into decent USB audio devices. Just having that will allow you to offload a lot of the work to your computer. And even if you prefer to have knobs, the computer just is a great way to get some of those synths, effects, and other sounds in place without having to go spend a whole lot of money up front to go buy these physical devices, because it'll allow you to patch things around, add effects that maybe, might cost you 5, 10, 15, 20, $50, whatever, to get as a software effect or synthesizer versus having to shell out hundreds of dollars. I mean, like I've got a bunch of guitar pedals, and each one ranges from $300 to $500, and it just adds up super quick. So, um, I, I'd say my advice would be for learning this stuff, just to kind of think about how you want to use it. Like focus on your outcomes. What is it that you want to accomplish? And don't be afraid to ask people. Like myself, there's like other people out on forums all over the place. By and large, people are willing to help as long as you've asked a question that can make sense or they can help drive you to what will feel like a solution. Also, don't be afraid to say, hey, thank you for helping me. This isn't quite what I was looking for. Now that I understand things a bit better, this is what I've learned. Can you help me do like this other thing? People are more than happy to help with that quite frequently, and you'll get a lot of mileage out of it. So I don't know. Just don't be afraid to try stuff. Play around with it yourself. I know there's a lot of things that can be tough to learn just because there's so much out there. I mean, I know plenty in some sense, but there's plenty of things that I have to learn myself in the music space. So um, just always be willing to learn, try out new things, and have fun. Anyway, thank you, El Duderino, for the question. Everybody else, thanks for stopping by. Keep making music, keep having fun. Remember, if it sounds good, it is good. And peace.